So apparently today's weather is completely bipolar and it's going to be a really nice day, and my whole intro sequence was pointless. What is up, my bodyweight warriors, and welcome back to episode 17 of Bodyweight Basics. I thought today's vlog we should take a little bit more of a nutrition focus because lately it's been pretty training heavy. Don't worry, there'll be training later on. Because of this, I wanted to touch on a topic that I've been asked in recent times, and that is, should you count calories? I've touched on this before in this series, more in regards to bulking, and yes, having a caloric surplus, eating more calories is going to be essential, but do you need to count them? That's the question I'm going to be answering. So when it comes to calories, most people are in two camps. Either calories are everything and nothing else matters, or calories are pointless and it's all about quality. For example, this meal right here, which is some wild salmon with some fried halloumi, and I've got some coconut milk, spring greens, and a red Thai paste, just thrown together. Pretty quick and simple meal. That has apparently 650 calories, about 40-ish grams of protein, 50 or 60 grams of fat, and pretty minimal on the carbs. So in terms of calories and macros, this is usually what I go for breakfast on a usual basis. However, I just don't usually count calories at all. So if you were to ask me the question, do you count calories? I would have to answer no. I don't count calories and I haven't for a long time. However, if I was to answer the question, should you count calories? I would definitely answer yes, but I'd add a little asterisk to that one. The reason I think people should count calories is just for a short period of time, and that is because awareness of calories is actually almost more important than the calories themselves. Ultimately, understanding what is in your food is really the key to long-term success. Nobody is going to count calories for the rest of their lives. However, the experience and the understanding you get from counting calories about what is in your food will transfer over to you looking at food and understanding how to better self-regulate with yourself, which will then lead to long-term success when it comes to maintaining your body composition or getting more muscle mass or cutting down a bit. You'll be able to do that more intuitively once you have more awareness and more understanding about what your food is made up of. Obviously there are some exceptions to this. If you want an extreme body composition goal, like you're stepping on stage, and you're going to need to count calories because intuitively it gets a bit challenging. And then secondly would be if you're not seeing results, if you want to lose weight or if you're trying to gain mass and you're trying to do that intuitive eating, then you want to take out those variables and make sure you definitely know what you're putting in your mouth. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. I think calorie counters are a really interesting one. I think it's a very useful tool just to get more awareness, but I'd love to hear what you do. Do you count calories or not? Have you counted calories in the past? I counted calories for like 2 years, every single day. Part of the reason I really don't want to do it anymore. But yeah, I'd love to hear your experience on things. Nature's greatest pre-workout, coffee, and I think we're going to be training some legs. Despite the fact that it is a really nice day, we are training in the gym because with lower body we like to favour intensity versus complexity, which means we need some heavier weights. And also, interestingly enough, I did ask on the last video, where do you feel you perform better? Do you perform better in the gym or do you perform better if you're training at home? And actually a lot of you said you perform better when you're in the gym, and I have to agree with you there. I find that if I train at home outside, whilst it is nicer and it's a nicer time because you're out in the sun, I often find that I feel weaker or I don't perform as well. So we're going to hit the gym, we're doing lower body, and we're doing, unfortunately, middle splits. Jumping into today's session, I'm starting off with some actual weightlifting. This is, again, I seem to always come back to this. I do it for a bit, and I go away from it for a bit, and I keep going backwards and forwards. However, currently speaking, it's here to stay for a bit because
my legs are feeling a little bit weak, and I'm not a huge fan of that. I'd rather than be at least able to perform some basic stuff. So I'm doing here pause front squats. Just for me, this is a good introductory exercise. It helps, you know, focus on activation and focus on positioning for the squat. And plus it means you can sort of make reps harder without adding too much additional load. This was then supersetted with the straight leg deadlifts. I'm using the same weight as I'm using for front squats, which isn't particularly heavy. And instead here, I'm just focusing on a range of motion and the lengthening and the eccentric of that hamstring. It's actually one of my favorite exercises. You know, it teaches the hip hinge, but it also teaches you how to properly stretch your hamstrings. It can be a really useful tool if they are a little bit tight. Next, we have the Peterson Step Up. It's actually one of my favorite single leg exercises. It's just such a good exercise for loading the quads in a nice focused way, and also working like knee stability and it being pretty functional at the same time. If you're doing any running sports, this one, in my opinion, is a must. This was supersetted with the single leg Swiss ball hamstring curls. This is something I saw somebody do, and I haven't actually ever tried it before myself, but it's a new one this phase. I love the Swiss ball hamstring curl for an isolation exercise for the hamstring and the glutes, but it's never quite hard enough. So doing it with the single leg variation definitely makes it quite a lot more troublesome. This was then into a tricep of these single leg side planks. So what you're doing here, the main difference between this and a traditional side plank is that because we're elevating one leg, we're going to be also working pretty hard the adductor on the top leg. So this for me is part of my rehab for my hamstring strain. Then finally finishing up with some core, and we're doing the good old hanging leg raise. This is really the king of abdominal exercises when it comes to bodyweight training. I'm using a little bit of momentum here, so I am cheating ever so slightly to do those 8 reps, but this for me has always been a pretty weak movement, and as you'll see as I get a little bit more fatigued, that's when that shoulder comes into play and you start compensating. This is superset with the hyperextension. My lower back is actually something that's a little bit weak, partly because I haven't been hitting all the weighted training that I should be hitting, and I've kind of just neglected it a bit. Whether it's been made worse from like a lot of excessive stretching, and in particular recently the head to toe work, I'm just feeling that it definitely needs some strengthening, so I'm doing these hyperextensions. It's classic gymnastic exercise as a good builder for that. Then I just thought I'd share with you some of my warm-up for the middle splits. I love to do banded frog pose work with a resistance band, which by the way you can grab, link in the description down below. And I also love this exercise, which I personally call hip swivels, but it's just like active internal and external rotation of both legs. It seems to get things firing in that area pretty well. Other than that, my standard middle split training is the Tailor Pose. You know, it's been in there from the beginning, and I personally find this exercise is incredible and night and day when it comes to opening up those hips, loosening up the adductors. And I then like to superset this with the horse squat, which in this case I'm doing a 5-step horse squat, which means you do the toes in, toes out for 5 times and then sink down. And here I'm just focusing on kind of hip positioning, making sure I'm sinking nice and low, staying around parallel, and also pushing my hips forward. Today, however, was not a good middle split day, as you'll see from these next 2 sets. Just a note on this, when it comes to loaded mobility, it's really important not to force exercises. Just because in your head you think that you can get to a certain level of middle splits or front splits or whatever, if for a certain, like for me, example, on this day, I felt that I was not going to be going any further down into that middle splits. I could just feel that it wasn't going to happen today no matter how much I forced it. It's really important that you understand and respect your body in that sense and don't push it too far. This is nowhere near what I can do and what I'm best of, but on the day, this is what happened. Back to the vlog.
As usual, the weight gainer post-workout shake. I just want to mention a couple of things about that last workout. It was a little bit of a meh workout. I forgot to mention that I did strain my hamstring a couple of weeks ago now, so it's a little bit affecting pancake and also middle splits. It doesn't hurt during middle splits, but I know that I can't go max range of motion, hence why the middle splits weren't the best they could be. Injuries with advanced loaded stretching does happen. It's just the nature of the game. You're working literally the extreme ranges of motion that your body can go into, and if you speak to any practitioner, any person who spent time in this kind of area, they will say that you get injuries. I probably should mention that this isn't necessarily a bad thing. This is literally like, you know, 2 to 4 weeks, maybe a little bit longer of just not being able to stretch as hard as I would usually stretch. So there's no biggie. It's just one of those things that sometimes pop up. I'm gonna smash some work quickly, but I'll catch you when I'm home. But that is kind of the end of today's vlog. Why not let me know your thoughts on calorie counting and what we discussed earlier? Leave a comment down below. I always read every single comment. I'm trying to reply to as many as possible, but there's just a lot of you, so it's taking some time to get through. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button and support the channel. Show you're enjoying this series. Also, while you're down there, you can hit that subscribe button and join the Bodyweight Warrior Tribe. Over 100,000 strong. It feels pretty good to say that. But that is it for this week, guys. I will catch you in the next episode. Have a strong week and peace.